The morning my 7-year-old son, Colton, grabbed the wrong tablet changed everything. I can still see him standing in our kitchen, syrup dripping from his dinosaur shirt, completely unaware that his small hands had just picked up the device that would destroy our family and save 13 others. When his teacher called 3 hours later, saying the police were at school and I needed to come immediately, I thought maybe Colton had gotten into a fight or there had been some kind of accident. But when Detective Ramona Church led me into that empty classroom and showed me what they'd found on my husband Dean's work iPad, I understood why he'd been working such long hours, why he'd been so secretive about his cases, and why he always made sure his tablet was locked. That day, I became a single mother, and my 7-year-old son became the hero who saved 13 missing children from a trafficking ring his own father had been running. I'm Willa. And up until that Tuesday morning, I thought I had a perfect life. I worked as a librarian at Riverside Elementary School, the same place where my son attended 2nd grade. My husband Dean was a private investigator who specialized in finding missing persons. He was the hero who reunited families, who brought children home, who gave desperate parents hope when everyone else had given up. Or at least, that's what I believed. That's what everyone believed. That's the lie he sold to me every single day for 9 years of marriage. Colton was our only child, a bright, curious boy who loved dinosaurs more than anything in the world. He could name every period of the Mesozoic era and tell you what each dinosaur ate, how tall they stood, and which ones had feathers. That morning, he was especially excited because it was picture day at school. But more importantly, he was finally going to present his T-Rex project to his class. He'd been working on that presentation for 2 weeks, researching facts, adding animations, making it perfect. He wanted to be a paleontologist when he grew up, he told everyone who would listen. His father and I were so proud of his passion, his dedication to learning. Dean had left early that morning, before Colton and I were even awake. Another client meeting, another family desperate to find their missing child. He'd kissed me on the forehead in the dark, whispered that he loved me, and slipped out like a shadow. It had been happening more frequently over the past few months. Late nights in his office, early morning departures, weekend calls that couldn't wait. His mother Glenda had started commenting on how tired he looked, how thin he was getting. Whatever case that boy is working on, she'd said at Sunday dinner just 2 days before, it's eating him alive from the inside out. I defended him, of course. I always defended him. Dean was saving lives, reuniting families, doing God's work in a world full of evil. How could I complain about long hours when he was out there bringing children home to their parents? How could I be selfish enough to want him home for dinner when somewhere a mother was crying for her missing baby? I was proud to be married to a hero. Colton was proud his daddy saved people. We understood that heroes had to make sacrifices. The morning ritual in our house was always the same. I'd make pancakes while Colton got dressed, then we'd eat together while reviewing his schedule for the day. That Tuesday, he was practically vibrating with excitement about his presentation. But in his rush, he'd forgotten to grab his tablet from his room. Check the charging station in the living room, I'd called out while packing his lunch. We had 3 iPads that all charged in the same spot every night. Mine had a bright pink case because Colton had picked it out for my birthday. His was covered in dinosaur stickers he'd been collecting since kindergarten. Dean's work tablet was in a plain black case. No decorations, no personality, just like all his work things. Professional, he called it. Boring, Colton and I joked. Got it, Colton had shouted, and I heard the distinctive sound of him shoving it into his backpack. We rushed out together, running late as always. I dropped him at Ms. Yates's classroom with a quick kiss on his head, reminding him to smile for picture day and knock everyone's socks off with his presentation. Then I headed to my library, ready for another normal Tuesday of reading groups and book checkouts. I had no idea that in 3 hours my entire world would collapse, and my 7-year-old son would accidentally become the key to solving the biggest child trafficking case our state had seen in decades. Tuesday mornings in our house were always controlled chaos, but it was our kind of chaos, the kind that made me smile even when I was exhausted. I loved my life as a librarian at Riverside Elementary, where the smell of old books mixed with children's laughter created the soundtrack to my days. The best part was that Colton attended the same school, so I could sneak peeks at him during recess or occasionally join his class for story time. Teachers would tell me how lucky I was to have such a well-behaved, intelligent boy, and I'd beam with pride every single time. Our morning routine that day started like any other. Dean's side of the bed was already cold when my alarm went off at 6:30. I found his note on the bathroom mirror. Early client meeting. Love you both. We'll be home late. Don't wait up. These notes had become more frequent lately, little apologies written on sticky notes scattered throughout our house. The coffee maker was already brewing, his way of saying sorry for missing another family breakfast. Mom, can we have dinosaur pancakes? Colton appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair sticking up in 12 different directions. He was wearing his favorite shirt, the one with the T-Rex skeleton on it that glowed in the dark. Perfect for picture day, I thought with a smile. Dinosaur pancakes coming right up, little man, I said, pulling out the special mold Glenda had given him for Christmas. She spoiled him rotten, being her only grandchild, but I couldn't blame her. Colton had that effect on people. While I cooked, Colton chattered about his presentation. Did you know that T-Rex arms were actually super strong? Each arm could lift 400 pounds. That's like 2 whole adult humans. He demonstrated with his own arms, nearly knocking over his orange juice in the process. That's amazing, sweetheart. Your classmates are going to love learning that. I set his pancakes down, artfully arranged with strawberry eyes and a blueberry smile, just how he liked them. Ms. Yates said I could go first because I've been waiting so patiently, he continued between bites. And Tommy said his dad knows someone who found a real dinosaur bone once, but I think he's making it up. I sat down with my coffee, watching him eat with such enthusiasm that syrup ended up everywhere. This was my favorite part of the day, just the two of us before the world demanded our attention. Dean used to join us for these breakfasts, making up silly dinosaur voices and turning every meal into an adventure. But those days had become memories over the past year as his caseload increased. Your dad would be so proud of your presentation, I said, wiping syrup from his chin. Is he coming to see it? Colton asked hopefully. He has to work, baby. But we'll show him the video tonight, okay? Colton nodded, used to the disappointment. It broke my heart how accepting he'd become of Dean's absences. Parent-teacher conferences missed, soccer games watched by only me, bedtime stories that became my sole responsibility. But Dean was doing important work, I reminded myself. The families he reunited made our small sacrifices worthwhile. After breakfast, the morning rush began in earnest. Colton couldn't find his library book, then remembered it was in the car. His backpack zipper got stuck, requiring emergency surgery with pliers. Picture day order form needed my signature. Permission slip for next week's field trip needed to be found in the pile of papers on the counter. Mom, where's my tablet? Colton called from the kitchen while I was in the bathroom fixing my hair. Check the charging station in the living room, sweetie, I replied, applying one last coat of mascara. The charging station was Dean's solution to our family's device chaos. A simple wooden shelf with 3 charging cables where all our tablets lived at night. It prevented the morning scramble of dead batteries and missing devices. Usually, it worked perfectly. Got it! Colton shouted triumphantly. We burst out the door at 7:45, speed-walking to my car. The elementary school was only a 10-minute drive, but traffic was always heavy with other parents doing the same morning shuffle. Colton practiced his presentation opening in the back seat, his voice serious and professional like he'd seen his dad prepare for client meetings. Tyrannosaurus rex, which means king of the tyrant lizards, lived 68 million years ago, he recited. But today, I'm going to show you why everything you thought you knew about T-Rex is wrong. That's a great hook, I told him, pulling into the school parking lot. You're going to do amazing. We walked into school together, his small hand in mine, his dinosaur backpack bouncing with each step. Neither of us noticed that the iPad in his bag had a black case instead of one covered in dinosaur stickers. Neither of us knew that this simple mistake would change everything in exactly 3 hours and 7 minutes. At exactly 10:47 a.m., I was deep in the middle of cataloging a new shipment of chapter books when my phone rang. The number showed the school's main office, which was odd since I was literally in the building. My first thought was that maybe Colton had forgotten his lunch money, though I'd packed his lunch that morning. Mrs. Willa? This is Bridget Yates, Colton's teacher. Her voice sounded strained, nothing like her usual cheerful tone. "You need to come to the principal's office immediately." My stomach clenched. "Is Colton okay? Is he hurt? He's fine physically, but please come now. Don't go to your library first. Come straight to Mr. Pike's office." The urgency in her voice made my hands shake as I grabbed my keys. The walk from the library to the main building usually took 3 minutes. That day it felt like 3 hours. Every terrible scenario played through my mind. Had Colton gotten into a fight? Said something inappropriate? Had there been an accident during recess? My heels clicked against the linoleum floor as I practically ran down the hallway, other teachers looking at me with concern as I passed. When I opened the principal's door, my blood turned to ice. 2 police officers stood beside Mr. Pike's desk, their uniforms crisp and official, their faces serious. Colton sat in a chair looking confused but unharmed, and there on the desk in front of him was an iPad in a black case. Dean's iPad. "Mom!" Colton jumped up and ran to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I grabbed Dad's tablet by mistake, but something weird happened when I tried to show my dinosaur presentation. I held him tight, my eyes moving between the officers, Mr. Pike and Ms. Yates. The principal, Vernon Pike, was a man I'd known for 5 years, someone who usually handled everything from bloody noses to parent divorces with calm authority. Today his face was pale, his usual composure completely shattered. Miss Yates stepped forward, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Mrs. Willa, when Colton connected the iPad to our smartboard for his presentation, it automatically opened to the last used application. Instead of his dinosaur slides, a different folder opened. At first, I thought it was just a mistake, maybe some of your husband's work files. But then I saw what was inside. The female officer whose badge read Detective Ramona Church picked up the tablet with gloved hands. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me to another room. Mr. Pike, please keep Colton here with Ms. Yates." "Mom, did I do something wrong?" Colton's voice was small, scared in a way that made my maternal instincts scream. I knelt down to his level, forcing my voice to stay calm. "No, baby. You did nothing wrong. Ms. Yates is going to stay with you for a few minutes while I talk to the police officer, okay? Maybe she can show you that new book about velociraptors we just got in the library." Ms. Yates immediately understood, taking Colton's hand. "That's a great idea. Come on, Colton. Let's go look at some dinosaur books while your mom handles the grown-up stuff." Detective Church led me to an empty classroom next door. The younger male officer followed, closing the door behind us. The room smelled like chalk and hand sanitizer, children's drawings of spring flowers decorating the walls, such a normal, innocent setting for what was about to happen. "Your husband is Dean, correct?" Detective Church asked, setting the iPad on a student desk. "He works as a private investigator specializing in missing persons cases?" "Yes, he helps find missing children and reunites families. He's been doing it for 8 years. Pride crept into my voice despite my fear. "What's going on?" "What did you find?" She turned on the iPad, her gloved fingers navigating to a folder labeled Active Cases. My relief was immediate. "Oh, those are just his case files. He works from home sometimes and keeps everything meticulously organized. He has to for court testimonies and insurance purposes." "That's what we thought at first," Detective Church said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Until we looked closer." She opened the first folder. A young girl's photo appeared, maybe 8 years old, with blonde braids and a gap-toothed smile. The file name read, Melody Brenner, missing 6 months. "I remember this case," I said quickly. "Dean was hired by the family last year. He worked so hard on it but couldn't find any leads. It nearly destroyed him." Detective Church opened another file, then another. Each one showed a different child's face. 13 folders in total. "Mrs. Willa, every one of these children has been missing for over 6 months. Every one was a case your husband reportedly worked on without success. He specializes in difficult cases," I defended, though something cold was creeping up my spine. "Sometimes children aren't found." "It's heartbreaking, but it happens." "Look at this," Detective Church said quietly, opening a different folder. Detective Church opened a folder labeled Transportation Routes, and my world began to crumble. Inside were detailed spreadsheets with dates, locations, and vehicle descriptions. Warehouse. addresses in industrial districts across 3 states, photos of unmarked vans, and at the bottom of each document, Dean's digital signature. "This can't be right," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Dean investigates missing children. He doesn't transport them." "Mrs. Willa, I need you to sit down," Detective Church said, guiding me to a small plastic chair meant for 3rd graders. The male officer brought me a cup of water from the classroom sink. She swiped to another folder titled Network Communications. Inside were encrypted message threads that had been decoded. The most recent one, dated 3 days ago, made my stomach heave. "Next pickup Thursday. Warehouse 47. Have the sedatives ready. The buyer wants them calm for transport." "No," I said firmly, pushing the iPad away. "You're wrong." Someone must have hacked his tablet. Dean would never hurt children. He has a son. He coaches Little League. He cried when we watched that documentary about child poverty. This isn't him. Detective Church sat across from me, her expression sympathetic but determined. "The IT forensics team has verified that these files were created on this device with your husband's login credentials from your home IP address. Multiple entries were made at times when he was confirmed to be home." She pulled up a financial folder. Bank statements showed deposits of $50,000, $75,000, amounts that made no sense for a private investigator's income. The dates match perfectly with when children on the list had disappeared. "We've been tracking this trafficking ring for 18 months, Detective Church explained. "We knew someone was coordinating locally, someone with access to information about vulnerable families, someone who could move freely without suspicion. A private investigator would have perfect cover. Parents trust him, share their routines, their schedules, their weaknesses." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk. "You're telling me that my husband used grieving parents' information to kidnap their children?" "Worse," the detective said softly. "He took their money to investigate cases he had orchestrated. He gave them false leads, dead ends, kept them hoping while he knew exactly where their children were." I thought about all those late nights Dean had worked, the cases that haunted him, the families he'd comforted. The Brenner family had sent us a Christmas card thanking Dean for never giving up hope. The mother had written, "Even though Melody isn't home yet, knowing someone cares means everything." "Where is Dean now?" I managed to ask. "We have units looking for him. His phone is off, his office is empty. When did you last see him?" "This morning. He left early for a client meeting." My voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to someone else. "He kissed me goodbye. He left a note saying he loved us." Detective Church's radio crackled. "All units, suspect's vehicle spotted heading north on Route 47 in pursuit." Route 47 led to the industrial district, to the warehouses. "Mrs. Willa, we need your help," Detective Church said urgently. "The message mentioned Thursday. That's in 2 days. But if Dean knows we're on to him, he might move the children sooner. Is there anywhere he might go? Any property you own that we might not know about?" I forced myself to think through the fog of shock. His uncle left him a cabin last year. It's about 2 hours north, very isolated. We were going to renovate it for family vacations, but never got around to it. Address? I pulled up the property records on my phone with shaking fingers. Detective Church immediately relayed the information to dispatch. "I need to see Colton," I said, standing on unsteady legs. "Soon. But first we need to know if you've noticed anything unusual lately. Any strange behavior, unexplained absences, anything that might help us find these children." I thought back over the past months. He's been taking more cases, working longer hours. Sometimes he'd leave in the middle of the night, said clients called with emergencies. He installed new locks on his office door, said it was for client confidentiality. And the money? God, I should have questioned the money. He said business was good, that he'd gotten some corporate contracts. "You couldn't have known," Detective Church said. "People like your husband are expert manipulators. They create perfect facades. What am I going to tell Colton?" The weight of it crashed down on me. How do I explain that his hero father is actually a monster? That the man who taught him to ride a bike and check for monsters under his bed is the real monster? "Right now, we focus on finding these children," Detective Church said. "Your son may have just saved 13 lives. If he hadn't accidentally taken this tablet, if Ms. Yates hadn't seen those files, we might never have connected Dean to this ring." Another voice came through the radio. Warehouse 47 is locked down. Preparing to breach. Detective Church's radio erupted with voices. We're inside Warehouse 47. Multiple juveniles found. Request immediate medical and social services backup. The relief in the officer's voice was palpable even through the static. How many? Church asked urgently. 13. All 13 from the files. They're alive. Scared and dehydrated, but alive. I collapsed back into the chair, sobbing. 13 children who would go home to their parents. 13 families whose nightmares were ending. All because my 7-year-old grabbed the wrong tablet. Suspect in custody, another voice reported. Dean Morrison apprehended attempting to flee through the back exit. No resistance. Detective Church looked at me. Would you like to speak with him? You don't have to, but sometimes it helps with closure. Yes, I said without hesitation. I need to look him in the eyes. I need to understand how the man I married could do this. 2 hours later, after I'd held Colton and promised him everything would be okay, after Glenda had arrived in tears of disbelief, I sat in a gray interrogation room at the police station. Dean sat across from me in handcuffs, still wearing the blue shirt I'd ironed 3 days ago. He looked exactly the same. No horns, no evil gleaming in his eyes. Just Dean, the man who made chocolate chip pancakes on Sundays and never missed Colton's bedtime story until recently. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Dean said, his voice flat and emotionless. You were never supposed to know. How long? I asked. How long have you been doing this? 2 years. He met my eyes without shame. The first time was an accident. I was investigating a missing girl, found her location through my contacts, but instead of calling it in, someone approached me with an offer, more money than I'd make in 5 years. So you sold her? Like property? I told myself she was already taken. Whether I helped transport her or not, she wasn't going home. At least this way, Colton could have a college fund. We could have a better life. A better life built on the suffering of children, I said, my voice rising. You looked those parents in the eyes. You took their money. You gave them hope while knowing exactly where their babies were. Dean leaned forward. Do you know how much private school costs? How much we'd need for Colton's education, his future. I did this for our family. Don't you dare, I snarled. Don't you dare use our son as an excuse for your evil. You did this for yourself, for greed. Detective Church entered with a laptop. The children are at the hospital being evaluated. Their families are on the way. She turned the screen toward us, showing security footage from the warehouse. 13 children huddled together in a locked room. The oldest maybe 12. The youngest no more than 5. The Brenner family is 40 minutes out, Church continued. Melody keeps asking for her mommy. She's been gone 6 months. 6 months of that mother dying inside every single day, while you knew exactly where her daughter was. Dean's composure finally cracked. I never hurt them. I made sure they were fed, that they had blankets. I'm not a monster. You're worse than a monster, I said, standing. Monsters are obvious. You hid behind a father's smile, a husband's kiss, a hero's reputation. You used our family as camouflage for evil. Willa, please, think about what this means. The house will be seized as criminal assets. Colton's college fund is evidence. Everything we built is gone. Everything we built was a lie, I replied. But Colton and I will rebuild with truth. He'll know his mother chose right over comfortable. He'll know that when faced with evil, we stood against it, even when it wore a familiar face. I want to see him. I want to explain. You'll never see him again. He'll grow up knowing his father is in prison where he belongs, but he'll also know that he's the hero who saved 13 children. That's his legacy, not yours. Detective Church showed me more footage from the hospital. Parents running through corridors, children crying mommy and daddy, reunions that seemed impossible just hours before. A father fell to his knees holding his son. A mother couldn't stop kissing her daughter's face. These were the scenes Dean had prevented for months, the joy he'd stolen and sold. The youngest victim was taken 2 weeks ago, Church said. Emma Walsh, 5 years old. She was at the warehouse for less than 48 hours before your son's accident exposed everything. Without Colton, she might have disappeared forever. Dean put his head in his hands. I was going to quit. After this last job, I was done. That's what all criminals say when they're caught, I said, walking to the door. Goodbye, Dean. The next time I see you will be in court when I testify against you. Willa, I love you. Despite everything, that was real. I turned back one last time. No, Dean. Love protects. Love sacrifices for others, not at their expense. You don't know what love is. That night, Colton and I stayed with Glenda in her small 2-bedroom house that smelled like cinnamon and fresh laundry. She held me while I sobbed in her kitchen, her own tears falling silently as she processed that her son, the boy she'd raised and loved, had become something unrecognizable. I keep thinking about when he was little, she whispered. He used to rescue worms from the sidewalk after it rained. When did that little boy turn into someone who could steal children? Mom, why can't we go home? Colton asked from the doorway, clutching his dinosaur stuffed animal that Glenda had grabbed from our house, along with our essentials. I knelt beside him, choosing my words carefully. Remember how Daddy helps find missing kids? Well, some very bad people were hiding them, and when you accidentally took Daddy's tablet to school, you helped the police find all those children. You're a hero, baby. 13 kids get to go home to their families because of you. Did Daddy do something bad? His innocent eyes searched mine for truth. Daddy made some very wrong choices that hurt people. He has to go away for a long time to face consequences for those choices. But what you did today was amazing. You saved children who were scared and missed their families. Like if I was lost and couldn't find you? Exactly like that. And because of you, 13 mommies and daddies got their babies back. 3 months later, we live in Oregon, 2,000 miles from everything we knew. I work at a small public library where no one knows our story. Colton thrives in his new school, where his teacher says he's remarkably well adjusted for everything he's been through. The trauma counselor we see twice a week says children are resilient when they're surrounded by love and truth. Dean pled guilty to avoid trial, accepting 25 to life. I didn't have to testify, didn't have to see him again. The prosecutor said it was one of the fastest plea deals she'd ever seen, probably because the evidence on that iPad was so overwhelming that his lawyers knew he had no chance at trial. The 13 families he helped destroy have become an unexpected source of support. They send Christmas cards addressed to our hero Colton. Melody Brenner's mother wrote me a 6-page letter thanking me for raising such a brave boy. Your son gave me back my daughter, she wrote. There are no words for that kind of gift. Emma Walsh's parents sent a video of her 5th birthday party, the one she got to have at home because of Colton's accident. I've learned that monsters don't always look like monsters. They don't lurk in shadows or have warning signs tattooed on their foreheads. Sometimes they make your coffee in the morning and coach Little League on Saturdays. Sometimes they kiss you goodnight for 9 years while orchestrating nightmares for other families. Evil can have a gentle touch and a familiar laugh. It can hold your hand during labor and cry at your son's kindergarten graduation, while planning to destroy other people's children. But I've also learned that heroes come in unexpected forms. They wear dinosaur shirts and get syrup on everything they touch. They grab the wrong tablet because they're excited about a school presentation. They save lives without meaning to, just by being their innocent, chaotic 7-year-old selves. Glenda visits us monthly, driving 16 hours each way because she refuses to let Dean's actions cost her a relationship with her grandson. That man might be my son by blood, she told me during her last visit, but you and Colton are my family by choice, and choice means more. Some nights Colton still asks about Dean. When he's older, I'll tell him everything. How his father was once good, or at least seemed to be. How greed and darkness can corrupt anyone who doesn't guard against it. How sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. But for now, I tell him age-appropriate truths. Daddy hurt people and has to stay in timeout. Daddy made bad choices that we can learn from. We love the daddy who taught you to ride a bike, but we don't love the things he did that hurt others. Our new life is smaller, but cleaner. We rent a tiny apartment instead of owning a 4-bedroom house. Colton goes to public school instead of the private academy Dean had picked out. I pack lunches instead of buying them. But every night when I tuck Colton in, I know we're living with truth instead of lies. We're building something real on a foundation that won't crumble when reality comes knocking. The wrong tablet grabbed on a Tuesday morning saved 13 children and freed 2 more from a life built on suffering. Sometimes accidents aren't accidents at all. Sometimes they're exactly what needs to happen. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and share it with others who need to hear it. Your comments mean everything, so let me know your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that will challenge everything you thought you knew about trust, family, and heroism. Thank you for listening to our story.